Observer is the combination of the cyberpunk aesthetic meets psychological horror game in what I can only describe as a trippy first-person perspective narrative. While I personally didn't think it was all that scary, it did succeed in creating an abstract and memorable adventure now available on the go with the Nintendo Switch. The year is 2084 and you play as Dan Lazarski, a member of the new wave of neural detectives called Observers. This is a cyberpunk future where technology is advanced but a heavy depression is casted over the world with the end of the dystopian war. The after effects are seen throughout the city as people turn to drugs, advanced implants, and virtual reality to escape the abyss that the world has become. As an observer, you have the power and the government license to hack the minds and fears of citizens in order to solve your investigations for the corporate authority. As the world would suggest, humanity's morals have been thrown out the window and it's woven throughout the entire story. Citizens are divided into different classes and those left in the lower tier levels live like prisoners in compact, isolated apartments. Ultimately, Observer does a great job at telling a mystery adventure story with the ever so slight hints of horror. While there are some very trippy jump scares at times, I wouldn't categorize this game as a horror game, in the same way I wouldn't describe Hellblade as a horror game either, just a psychological game. With that said, it's a good psychological game that has you investigating the fears of suspects as you piece together the whereabouts of your estranged son. Despite being in the first-person perspective, you're not shooting anything in this game. This is more akin to something like Firewatch and What Remains of Edith Finch. It's a narrative-driven story with hints and clues told through the environment and what an environment it is. I've always been a really big fan of the cyberpunk theme. I mean, who isn't a sucker for cool-looking neon signs in the middle of a dark, rainy night? Anyway, as you explore the rundown cyberpunk environment, you use your electromagnetic vision and biovision to scan and look for clues at different crime scenes. Both of these tools are part of your cybernetic implants that let you scan the environment for technology-based hints and bio-clues like blood and other organic matter. Analyzing the different objects at crime scenes reveals new hints towards your next objective as you piece together the sequence of events that occurred prior to your arrival. Aside from your investigation, you'll solve environmental puzzles through these mental deep dives into the suspects you hacked. These moments are some of the creepiest parts of the game where those sensitive to flashing lights and fast moving imagery may want to stay away. For those that can handle it though, you're in for some isolated, uncomfortable scenarios that sent chills down my own spine when I was playing it. Hacking into the fears of those alive, and even more taboo, those dead, is already a horrifying premise that only gets worse the deeper you dive into them. I would have loved to see more puzzles integrated into these gameplay moments because what's here is fantastic, but there isn't a lot of it as the entire story can be beaten in about 6 to 7 hours. Luckily, there are a handful of decisions for you to make in the dialogue scenarios throughout the story. These add up to multiple endings, adding to a bit of replay value for those seeking more beyond your first playthrough. This isn't Observer's first time being released. It was actually released a little over a year ago on PC, Xbox One, and PS4. Even back on those console platforms, the game struggled to run certain sequences, so I was quite interested to see how the Nintendo Switch would run this game. Well, as expected, this is a pretty tough game for the Nintendo Switch to run properly. Resolutions both in dock and portable mode appears soft with things looking fuzzier than other intensive ports like Bethesda's Doom. Things look incredibly muddy and it only gets worse the closer you get to the darker lit parts of the game. The resolution isn't so much of a grand issue though, I can still make out the environment and puzzle elements. Instead, it's the frame rate issues that become a bigger hassle. These spawn up during more intensive scenes or when the game tries to load out a new environment. In a game that purposely makes these glitched out scenes so frequently, it's hard to tell what's part of the game and what's my Switch struggling to run the game. It can get quite impactful for Nintendo's handheld, but that may not be a big enough issue for some considering this is solely a single player game without any competitive factors in it. For me, it got a bit jarring though with the combination of glitch effects. Observer is filled with the perfect amount of eerie, atmospheric ambient noise that makes exploring these isolated apartments and just overall dystopian world feel all the more creepy. The more impressive part of the audio is the absolutely stellar performance work by the voice actors throughout the game. Daniel's character most of all stands out as having this sense of charm yet feeling like a withered old cop. I couldn't help but feel like a badass as I investigated my son's whereabouts. Even down to the dialogue choices, I didn't want Daniel to say anything that I personally wouldn't, and I think that speaks a lot to how compelling he was as a character to me. As a game alone, regardless of platforms, Observer is a great addition to the story-driven first-person genre. The almost grudge-like cyberpunk theme is awesome in a world that isn't necessarily scary, but rather stunning like that of 1984. I wish there was more gameplay to it, but being roughly $12 on Steam right now, it's a great way to spend a weekend. As a $30 Switch port though, it's bringing a lower tier version of the experience, only now on the go with worse performance. I think if this had been competitively priced like the PC version, I'd be able to recommend it to more people. It's on par price-wise with the Xbox One and PS4 versions, but with more performance issues. For those reasons and more, I give Observer on PC, Xbox One, and PS4 an 8.5 out of 10, but I give it a 6.5 out of 10 on the Nintendo Switch. Thank you all very much for watching my review. If you enjoyed it, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more reviews every single week. You can also check out the description of this video to find my Discord and Patreon links. Both of those are great resources to get in contact with me to request any games coming out in the future that you want reviewed. Thank you all very much for watching, hope you guys have a great day, and keep on gaming.